I often wondered what it felt like to be seen. Not glanced at, not spoken to out of obligation, truly seen. In our cramped 2-bedroom apartment, there was no shortage of noise. Jessica's laughter echoed like royalty in the narrow hallways. Mother Karen always knew where Jessica was, what she liked for dinner, which boy she was texting. I, on the other hand, existed in the negative space, like the shadow of a painting present but unacknowledged. They never said I was unwanted, not in words. But silence has its own kind of cruelty, and my life had been coloured by it for as long as I could remember. Forgotten plates at dinner, birthday cards unsigned, conversations held just outside of earshot. At school, I tried. God, I tried. Grades spotless, behaviour exemplary. I offered to help with chores before being asked. Took shifts at the corner mart every weekend. I came home with sore feet and grocery bags, while Jessica lounged on the worn-out sofa, scrolling, sipping soda someone else had bought for her. If she failed a class, they blamed the teacher. When I excelled, it was barely worth a nod. That's just what's expected, Karen once said. Eyes never leaving the TV. And so I stopped expecting. But resentment doesn't grow loud, it grows still, like mould in silence. I didn't hate them, not then. I just kept hoping that maybe if I did just one more right thing, they'd finally turn toward me with pride in their eyes. Maybe one day they'd say, "Emily, we're proud you're ours." That day never came, but something else did. Something far colder, something final. And it began on a Saturday night. It was Saturday evening when the unravelling began. The fluorescent lights in the corner store had left a faint hum in my ears, and my uniform still smelled faintly of bread and bleach. I stepped into the apartment quietly, the way I always did, as if apologising for my own arrival. Jessica was where she always was, sprawled across the living room couch, controller in hand, her expression a vacant kind of joy. The television flashed violently in sync with the video game she was absorbed in. On the table, a half-eaten plate of something greasy. On the floor, my backpack upturned, papers scattered like fallen feathers across the thin rug. I stood still, just for a moment, hoping stupidly that it wasn't what it looked like. But of course it was. I dropped to my knees, gathering pages I recognised immediately, my midterm notes, annotated, cross-referenced, colour-coded, or they had been. Now they were torn, smudged, ripped away from their spiral binding like trash. "Jessica," I said flatly. She didn't look up. "Needed some paper. You tore them out," I said, my voice tightening. "Where are the rest?" She finally spared me a glance, her tone casual, even bored. "I think I threw them out. I don't know, maybe the kitchen bin?" I stared at her. She didn't flinch. She'd always known the rules didn't apply to her. And the worst part, she was right. "That was 2 weeks of work," I said quietly. Jessica shrugged. "They're just notes, Em. Not like you're doing anything important with your life anyway." That last sentence didn't sting because it was cruel. It stung because it was honest, at least in her eyes. And in Karen's. And Robert's. That was how they all saw me. The girl who worked, who didn't complain, who wasn't worth defending. I walked toward the kitchen to see if, maybe, just maybe, some of the pages were salvageable. That's when the door creaked open behind me. Karen's laughter entered before she did, Robert trailing close behind. The two of them paused when they saw me, still crouched beside the trash bin, holding what remained of my notebook. The mood in the room changed instantly. "What's with the face?" Karen asked, voice tight with disapproval. "She ripped up my school notes," I said, standing slowly. "They're all over the floor, or in here." Karen barely looked in Jessica's direction. "It's just paper," I blinked. "Excuse me," Jessica grinned behind them. "Yeah, Em, just paper." I waited for something, a flicker of acknowledgement, a warning, a weak reprimand even. But there was nothing. "You let her get away with everything," I said, louder this time. "I work one clean, I study, and she trashes my things and you act like I'm overreacting?" "You always do this," Karen sighed. "Always the victim, always the drama." I was shaking now, not with rage, but with clarity. Robert folded his arms, as if bracing for my reaction. "This attitude of yours? This is exactly why no one wants to be around you." The words sliced through the room like glass. I stood motionless. It wasn't even said in anger, just finality, fact. And then Jessica leaned back, stretched her arms, and smiled like a cat that had just watched the bird die. "No one wants you here, Emily." But what shattered me wasn't Jessica, it was Karen. It was Robert. They nodded. They actually nodded. I didn't scream, I didn't plead, I just breathed. And for the first time, I stopped needing anything from them. "Okay," I said. Then I turned around, walked to my room and began to pack. There was no storm, no slammed doors, no shouting match. Just silence, like the kind you hear after an argument you didn't know was your last. I packed slowly. The room wasn't large, barely enough space for the twin bed and mismatched dresser. I'd scavenged from a second-hand sale, but it held more of me than the people outside ever had. I took what I needed. The rest I left behind like old skin. Jessica's music thudded faintly through the wall. Karen and Robert's voices murmured in the kitchen, hushed but unhurried, as if nothing had just been broken, as if they hadn't nodded when their daughter was told she wasn't wanted. I stepped out with my duffel bag slung over my shoulder. Nobody looked up. "I'm leaving," I said. Karen reached for the kettle. "You'll be back. You always are." I didn't reply. I walked out, down 3 flights of stairs in that fading, mustard-lit apartment complex, and into a world that didn't even know I existed. It was late, and the street hummed with the leftover warmth of the day. I called Nina, the only person who'd ever really listened when I spoke. She didn't ask questions when I arrived. She didn't try to fix anything. She just handed me a blanket and said, "Stay as long as you need." That one gesture was more family than I'd known in years. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't stew in anger or regret. I lay on Nina's couch, a little hollow, but strangely weightless, as if I'd finally stepped out from under something I hadn't realized had been pressing on my chest for years. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls. My phone buzzed like a broken fire alarm. Notifications stacked one after another. Robert, Karen, Jessica. I didn't answer, just stared at the screen. For a family that didn't want me, they sure were desperate now. Then came the texts. "Karen, this is ridiculous. Come home. You're being immature. Robert, enough of this. Stop acting like a child." I scoffed and tossed the phone aside. So I had walked out, and clearly they weren't sorry, just inconvenienced. Then another message came through. This one from Karen. "Karen, come home. We have a problem." I froze, sat upright. A problem? Curiosity, it's a hell of a drug. "Me, what happened?" she responded within seconds. "Karen, it's Jessica." She screwed up. "Bad." And just like that, I knew. They didn't miss me, they didn't care that I'd left, they needed me. Something shifted inside me, something cold and calm. They weren't calling because they'd seen the error of their ways. They were calling because Jessica, the one they'd always bent over backward to protect, had finally broken something they couldn't fix. I leaned back into Nina's worn couch and let them sit in that desperation for a while. More messages followed. "Robert, we don't have time for this attitude. Come home. Karen, please." This is serious. I imagined them pacing in that apartment, the same one they had ruled like a kingdom. I never got the keys to. Now, The court was collapsing, and suddenly the exiled daughter was being called upon to rescue it. So I typed a simple response. Me, not my problem. A minute passed. Then another. Then a call from Robert. I declined it. Then a text popped up from him. Robert, you're being selfish. I laughed out loud. The irony was thick enough to choke on. Finally, Karen sent the text that changed everything. Karen, Jessica's been arrested. I blinked. Arrested. Now that was interesting. Nina looked up from her laptop. What's that face? I was already grabbing her car keys. I need a ride. Back home? She asked, one brow raised. I smirked. Oh, I'm not going back. I just need to see this. 15 minutes later, we pulled up to the apartment complex. The front door was already open. Robert paced along the narrow balcony, his face drawn and grey. Karen sat on the concrete steps, her head in her hands. No laughter, no dismissive remarks, no smug glances, only panic. I took my time walking up. No need to rush the moment. So, I said, adjusting the strap of my bag, who wants to tell me what happened? Robert turned toward me, eyes bloodshot. Where the hell have you been? I raised an eyebrow. Not here. Like you wanted. He clenched his jaw but said nothing. Karen finally looked up. It's Jessica, she whispered. She stole from someone. Someone dangerous. They pressed charges. She's in holding now. I crossed my arms. And? Karen blinked. We need money. For bail. For a lawyer. We need your help. For a moment, I just stared at her. She looked small, like all the control had finally drained from her bones. They needed me, but I didn't need them. I tilted my head, feigning consideration. So let me get this straight. You spent years ignoring me, letting her walk all over everything I worked for, told me I wasn't wanted, and now, suddenly, I'm the one you come to. Robert looked like he was chewing nails. This isn't about that. This is about family. Oh, I said, smiling thinly. Now we're family. Karen's voice cracked. Please. We can talk about everything later. Right now, we just need you to help us get her out. I inhaled slowly. How much is bail? Robert glanced at Karen, then back at me. 10,000, I whistled. That bad, huh? Karen nodded eagerly. So you'll do it? I smiled. Absolutely not. Their faces crumpled like paper in the rain. Excuse me? Robert snapped. Not my problem, I repeated, enunciating each word like punctuation. Karen stepped toward me. She's your sister. I met her gaze. No, she's your daughter. You made that very clear. And then I turned. Not just my body, but my back. I didn't flinch when Robert shouted behind me, Don't you dare walk away from us. I paused at the car door, just long enough to glance back. You already did it first. Then I got in, closed the door, and left them with the wreckage they created. That night, I sat cross-legged on Nina's living room floor with a burger in one hand and my phone in the other. The wrapper crinkled beneath my fingers, greasy and warm comfort food for a soul that had grown too used to starvation of the emotional kind. My phone screen lit up every few seconds. More messages, more missed calls. Karen, Robert, Jessica. Their names looked strange there now, like contacts. I should have deleted years ago, but kept out of habit. Ghosts of people who only remembered I existed when their golden child went dark. I didn't answer. I didn't even feel tempted to. There was something oddly peaceful about watching them unravel from a safe distance. The texts were relentless. Karen, we can work something out. Please just talk to us. Robert, your sister is still in holding. This is urgent. Karen, we're trying to get the money together. We just need your help for the rest. I set my phone down and took another bite of my burger. They wanted something, not reconciliation. Not understanding, just a bailout. It wasn't love that drove them to my doorstep, it was panic. But then Jessica's name popped up. Jessica, you're really going to let me rot in here? I wiped my fingers on a napkin, then stared at the message for a moment before replying, Me, you told me no one wanted me around. I'm just respecting your wishes. Delivered. Read. No response. I leaned back against the couch, took a sip of soda, and smiled. This was the part of the story where I was supposed to feel guilty. Maybe a little victorious, but mostly I felt still, like I had finally reclaimed my silence and made it my armor. The next morning, the messages escalated. Apparently, things were getting worse. Robert, we had to sell the TV. Karen's furious. Karen, we're trying. Do you even care? She's your sister. Jessica, hope you're happy. I swear, when I get out, you better pray I don't find you. That last one made me laugh out loud. Threats from behind bars. Jessica was nothing if not consistent. I let a few hours pass, then replied, Me? Strong words for someone who needs my help? Try again? Silence. Then, finally, Karen sent a longer message. Karen, please. We're really struggling. We can't do this without you. I let that sit for a while. Then I typed, Me, tell you what. I'll consider helping on one condition. Karen, anything, I smirked. Me, I want a public apology. In the family group chat. Long and detailed. I want all of you to admit everything you've ever said and done to me. And I want you to thank me for offering help. It took them longer to respond that time. I imagined Robert pacing again, Karen wringing her hands, Jessica probably throwing a tantrum in her holding cell. Eventually the message came through from Karen in the family group chat. Karen, we need to talk about how we've treated Emily. We've made mistakes, serious ones. We understand now how much we've hurt her and taken her for granted. She is an important part of this family, and we are grateful for her generosity and kindness in helping us during this difficult time. It was stiff, forced, humiliating, and absolutely perfect. I reacted with a simple thumbs up emoji. Did I send the money? Of course not. What they needed was a lifeline. What I gave them was a mirror. They spent years looking past me. Now I was the only one they could see, and they still couldn't look me in the eye. Later that week, Jessica managed to call me. Her voice was rough, heavy with frustration and disbelief. I can't believe you're doing this, she said, her tone somewhere between a growl and a sob. You think this is funny? Funny? I replied, letting my voice drift into something light and amused. No, but it's satisfying. You're better than this, she hissed. I thought you were different. That's your mistake, I said softly. You thought I was weak. There was a pause on her end. The sound of distant movement, maybe someone shuffling behind her or a buzzer going off. I said things I didn't mean, she muttered. No, Jessica. You said exactly what you meant, I corrected. You just didn't think you'd ever need me. She was quiet after that, and I let the silence hang. I wanted her to sit in it. I wanted her to understand what it felt like to be met with nothing. After a beat, she tried again. So, what now? You just leave me here? I thought about helping, I said honestly. But then I remembered all those dinners you got seconds while I went without. The way Mum waved me off, like I was a nuisance. The time Robert said no one wanted to be around me and you smiled. I let those words settle like dust. You taught me what it feels like to be discarded. And now you're the one discarded. Funny how that works, huh? She didn't respond. Maybe she hung up. Maybe the call was cut off. I didn't care, because I didn't need closure. I already had peace. It's strange, the things that bring you peace. You'd think it would be justice. Or maybe revenge that feels cinematic, dramatic music swelling as the villain begs for mercy. But sometimes peace is quieter. It's the absence of noise, the stillness where you once braced for impact. That week, the messages from Karen and Robert didn't stop. If anything, they doubled. Like they thought maybe persistence could wear me down where guilt couldn't. Karen, we sold Robert's golf clubs. That barely made a dent. We're out of options. Robert, this is your family. You're punishing all of us for her mistake. Karen, please, just tell us what to do. But what moved me wasn't the begging. It was the shift. For once, they weren't acting like I owed them. They weren't demanding. They were unraveling. And all I had to do was nothing. I was sitting on Nina's balcony that morning when Jessica finally reached out again. Jessica, you win. Okay? Are you happy now? I stared at her words for a long time. Because that was the difference between us. I didn't want to win. I never played a game. I just wanted to matter. And they made it crystal clear over and over that I didn't. Until now. I typed one final message. Me. If you treated me like a sister back then, you wouldn't be texting me like a stranger now. Sent. Read. No reply. It should have ended there, but it didn't. That evening, Robert called again. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, another message appeared, this one longer. Robert, we're selling furniture now. Karen is blaming me. Your sister keeps crying in the cell. This is tearing everything apart. We shouldn't have said those things to you, but family forgives, right? Family. That word again. They threw it around like a bandage, as if it could magically erase years of being invisible, as if it wasn't the very weapon they used to silence me. So I decided to end it on my terms. I called Karen. She picked up immediately, breathless. Emily? You asked me what to do, I said, so I'll tell you. Silence. I want you to remember this, I continued. Every time you sit on that couch and Jessica's not home, every time the phone doesn't ring, every time the guilt comes creeping back, I want you to remember how you looked me in the eye and said nothing when she told me I wasn't wanted. Karen's voice broke. We were wrong. I know, I said, but I'm not interested in apologies anymore. I'm interested in peace. So you're not helping? No, I replied gently. I'm doing what you told me to do, remember. I'm staying gone, she sniffled. You can't just walk away. I already did. And I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just stood on that balcony, breathing in air that finally felt mine. They tried once more, Jessica included. This time, it wasn't just about bail. Karen, if we can't get her out this week, she might be charged. Robert, they're talking about court dates. Please, just a loan. We'll pay it back. Jessica, you said you were better than this. Guess not. And that last one? That made me laugh. The girl who used to steal my notes, tear up my work, call me worthless, now expected grace from the sister. She threw away like trash. So I gave her one last gift. Me, you were right, Jess. No one wanted me there. So now I'm somewhere I am. Delivered. Read. Blocked. That weekend, I bought myself something small. A second-hand armchair for Nina's place. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I paid for it with the same hands that had once done dishes without thanks, folded clothes that weren't mine, and handed over paychecks that barely stretched far enough. Now, those hands held power. I didn't answer their calls after that. Didn't scroll through their messages late at night. I let the notifications pile up like dust on a shelf I'd long since stopped cleaning. Weeks passed. Jessica's court date came and went. Nina showed me the article's small-town coverage. Nothing scandalous. Just a name, a date, a charge. No mention of family. Ironic. Eventually, Karen sent one final message. Karen, I hope someday you understand. We were doing our best. I didn't respond, because I did understand. Their best only surfaced when they had something to lose. And by then, I had already gained more than they could ever offer. A roof where I was wanted, a friend who saw me, a future that was finally my own. And maybe, somewhere down the line, they'd remember the daughter. They forgot sitting quietly in her corner of the apartment, hoping for a kind word. But by the time they looked back, I'd already be too far ahead. Living, thriving, gone. Story 2. You ever look back and realize your whole childhood was more performance than life? That was me. I'm Claire, and growing up, it seemed like my family had it all. We lived in a sprawling house in a gated suburb outside Seattle, marble floors, infinity pool, even a wine cellar my parents barely touched. People used to say we were the picture-perfect family. But perfection is exhausting to maintain when it's built on illusion. My dad, Eric, was the real backbone of everything. Self-made entrepreneur, started his logistics company out of a garage and scaled it to a multi-million-dollar empire. He was quiet, steady, always working. And then there was my mother, Celeste, the queen of curated perfection. You couldn't tell if she loved Instagram more than her own reflection, but the woman had taste. Designer handbags, salon appointments twice a week, and brunches with her ladies that cost more than most people's rent. She didn't work, never had to. Her full-time job was making sure we looked like royalty. New cars every couple of years, custom wardrobe, European vacations. I used to hear her say things like, "I simply can't wear Chanel from last season. What will Margot think?" While my dad slid his black Amex across the counter like clockwork. I floated on the edges of that world. Mostly raised by nannies who rotated out faster than a Netflix subscription. There was one I actually remember, Tina. She was kind, grounded, and actually cared about me. We baked cookies, she taught me how to braid my own hair. But one day she vanished too. Mom accused her of stealing a bracelet. I knew she didn't, but in our house, Mum's word was law. Then everything changed when I was 14. Dad had been stressed for months. Longer hours, fewer dinners at home, worried phone calls behind closed doors. Celeste barely noticed, too busy planning a luxury retreat to Street Barts. Then one night, the phone rang. I can still hear her shriek. Dad had collapsed at his office. Heart attack. He was gone before the paramedics got there. The house went silent for days, then erupted into chaos. At the funeral, Mum played the grieving widow to perfection black lace veil, shaking hands, soft sobs. But I saw through it. What terrified her wasn't losing Dad, it was losing her lifestyle. A week later, she was in Dad's office, spinning in his chair and calling herself CEO. "I've absorbed everything Eric ever taught me," she said, pacing in Louboutins. "I'll lead us into a new era." Except, she hadn't learned a damn thing. The only thing she'd ever managed was our Christmas parties. She didn't understand a single financial report, but insisted on streamlining the business. Her version of streamlining? Firing half the leadership team, rebranding with a new logo, and siphoning company money to redo our kitchen in imported marble. I tried to talk to her. Maybe you should hire someone to help run things. Someone who knows the logistics industry. Her reply? "Darling, instinct is more valuable than experience. Besides, you're too young to understand." I was 15, old enough to recognize a sinking ship. Within 6 months, clients were leaving. Vendors weren't being paid. Employees quit or were fired left and right. Rumors swirled about bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Celeste kept up appearances, spa trips, new designer shoes, cocktail parties like nothing had changed. The blow came on my 16th birthday. She'd just ordered new Italian furniture for her executive suite when the bankruptcy letter landed. The company was officially underwater, assets seized, office closed, staff gone, and soon after our house followed. Watching movers box up decades of curated wealth was surreal. Gone was the house, the pool, the collection of shoes she used to brag about. We moved to a modest ranch home an hour outside the city. I was stunned she didn't combust from humiliation. The only thing left untouched? My college trust fund. Dad had set it up in a protected account she couldn't access, no matter how hard she tried. "Claire," she said one morning, saccharin's smile in place, "we could really use that college money right now. Maybe just a little. You can take a gap year." "No," I told her, "it's for school. Dad set it up for a reason." She turned icy. "After everything I've done for you," the guilt trips began. Silent treatments, passive-aggressive comments at dinner, but I didn't cave. I watched her burn through everything we had, and I wasn't about to hand over my future too. The next 2 years were cold. She made no effort to celebrate my high school graduation. "Why should I throw a party for someone who won't even help her own mother?" she asked, not even glancing up from her tablet. But I got into college anyway. I chose a university 3 states away, not for the academics, but for the distance. I didn't even wait for the end of the ceremony. As soon as I got my diploma, I told her I was leaving. "You're abandoning me," she gasped, hand on chest like she was starring in a soap opera. "No, Mom, I'm just finally choosing myself." College was tight financially, but peaceful. I ate dollar store ramen, bought used textbooks, and skipped spring break trips. Every holiday I'd make the obligatory call. "How are you, Mum?" "Oh, barely surviving," she'd sigh. Not everyone gets to live off a trust fund. Not once did she call me first. Not once did she say she was proud. But I graduated, with honours, landed a great job at a consulting firm, got promoted twice in 2 years, scraped together enough for a tiny apartment in the city, and finally started to breathe. Then came that one Christmas call. Her heater had broken. She couldn't afford groceries. "But don't worry about me," she said dramatically. "I'll wear coats and eat crackers." I sighed. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the holidays. Maybe I just wanted to stop feeling like I was always one breath away from emotional blackmail. So I said, "I'll come visit next week." And just like that, I walked back into her world, this time with a plan. When I got back to her house, it was worse than I expected. The paint was peeling, gutters hanging like broken limbs, carpets stained with who knows what. The heat barely worked. It wasn't just neglect, it was decay. My mum answered the door, wrapped in 3 layers of sweaters, and the same perfume she wore back in the rich years. It smelled like denial. We sat in her tiny kitchen. She poured coffee into mismatched mugs, like we were old friends catching up, not 2 people who'd spent years at emotional war. "I've been doing my best," she said, eyes wide, that familiar edge of victimhood under every word. "But it's hard out here, Claire. I'm not young anymore." I sipped my coffee and just nodded. I wasn't here to fight. I had a job, I had savings, and I could afford to help without setting myself on fire anymore. So I offered her $1,000 a month, just enough to ease the pressure, keep the lights on, maybe fix the plumbing. Her face lit up like Christmas morning. Within a month, the house started looking like someone actually lived there again. New carpets, fresh paint. I even got her a decent heater. She didn't thank me directly, of course, but she started calling more often. Friendly calls. Invites to dinner. Nothing fancy, modest restaurants. A few relatives. Sometimes just her and me. She made it feel casual, almost warm. At first it was nice. She'd say, "Let's try that Italian place on Birch Street, Claire. I heard they have good breadsticks." Then it was a little French cafe. then a sushi spot downtown. It became routine, a dinner every couple weeks. She'd invite Aunt Liz or her old friend Marlene. Always small groups, always tasteful. The bill usually hovered around $150 to $200, and I always paid. It didn't feel like a big deal. I was earning well, and honestly, I felt responsible, like I owed it to her to help keep some part of her dignity intact. And for the first time in years, she was actually proud of me. At one dinner, she beamed across the table and said, "Did you hear? Claire just landed the Anderson contract. Biggest deal at her firm this year." She was telling my success story like it was hers, but not in a boastful way. It almost felt sincere. The calls kept coming. Dinner at a new tapas place. Brunch downtown, I didn't mind, it was manageable. And weirdly enough, I started feeling like maybe, just maybe, we'd turned a corner. I even gave her my old car, still in perfect shape. Her rusty Honda looked like it needed last rites, so I handed her the keys to my Lexus with a smile. She hugged me tight, teared up even. "You've grown into such a good woman," she whispered. That moment stayed with me. A few months later, I noticed her internet was still dial-up. Like, actual dial-up. I upgraded it without a word. Then I started covering her utilities too, after realizing she was keeping the heat way too low just to save on bills. It all seemed reasonable, generous, but not outrageous. I didn't think much of it until New York. I had a work trip and decided to bring her along. It had always been her dream to see a Broadway show, and I figured why not? She was grateful, really grateful. And when I heard Aunt Liz had never been either, I brought her too. They were perfect tourists. No demands. Just thrilled to be there. We ate at little diners, walked through Central Park, snapped photos in Times Square. It was the first time I ever saw her, content, not posing, not comparing, just enjoying. After that, every time I had a business trip, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, I brought her or another relative along. They'd explore while I worked. We'd eat together, catch a show or two. Nobody asked for designer anything. It was simple, human, and I liked it. By now I had a house of my own, small but modern. I hosted a cozy housewarming, and she didn't say a word about how tiny it was, just smiled and said, "You've made it, Claire." When I upgraded to a new car, I didn't hesitate to gift her mine again. Same deal. It felt like healing. Then came her birthday. She called one morning, chipper as ever. "I'm turning 55 next month, sweetie. You know, that's a big one." "I was planning to visit," I said. "Want to have dinner at my place? I could cook, or we can get that pasta place you like." "Oh, no," she said quickly. "You've done so much. I want to plan this one. Let me handle it, okay? You just show up." Something about her voice made me pause, but I brushed it off. Maybe she really wanted to take control of her own celebration for once. The day came, and she texted me an address, Le Montrose. It didn't ring any bells, so I punched it into Google. My jaw dropped. Le Montrose was the most expensive restaurant in the city, like where celebrities get their weddings catered. I'd only ever seen it in magazines, the kind of place where the menu has no prices and everything's market value. Still, I told myself maybe she just booked a table for 5 or 6 people. Something modest but symbolic. I put on a black dress and heels and headed over. The moment I walked in, my stomach flipped. There were at least 30 people. Every relative I could recognize. Old friends of hers I hadn't seen since I was in braces. 2 long tables, white linens, crystal glasses, a full waitstaff. Someone had even printed menus. Custom menus with her name on them. She spotted me and lit up like a chandelier. "Claire, You made it! She hugged me, then waved me toward a seat at the head table. Everyone's so excited, and the food is divine. I sat down slowly, trying to keep my face neutral. Aunt Liz leaned over and whispered, "Your mum told us you insisted on throwing her a luxury dinner. Honestly, it's incredible. The caviar, insane. Wait, what?" Then came the courses. Lobster, imported foie gras. Bottles of wine I recognized from a tasting in Napa, $500 minimum each. I couldn't breathe. I did a quick count in my head. 30 people, 8 courses, top-tier wine, easily over $8,000, probably more. And she never said a word about expecting me to cover it. That's when Aunt Liz tapped her glass for a toast. "To Claire," she said sweetly, "for arranging this stunning party. Your generosity is only matched by your success." Celeste couldn't be prouder. I stood up. "I didn't plan this," I said, voice calm but firm. "I didn't pick the restaurant. I didn't invite anyone, and I didn't agree to pay for it." The room froze. My mum's smile shattered like glass. "Claire!" she hissed. "Don't embarrass yourself." "No," I said. "I offered to make dinner. Or get takeout. You said you'd handle it. You didn't ask me. You just assumed. And this?" I gestured around the room. "This is manipulation dressed up as celebration." Gasps. Forks clinking against plates. I reached into my purse and dropped $200 in cash onto the table. "That should cover my meal," I said, and walked out without looking back. The air outside was cold, sharp, but it felt cleaner than anything I'd breathed in years. Back in my hotel room, I turned off my phone. I knew the storm was coming. And oh, it did. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 48 missed calls from Mum, 20 from Aunt Liz, a bunch more from unknown numbers. My inbox was full of voicemails, some yelling, some crying, all exhausting. I sat there for a minute, staring at the screen, just breathing. Then I called her. "Claire?" she answered on the first ring. Her voice was already cracking. "How dare you?" "Mom," I said, keeping my tone even, "we need to talk." "I'm coming over." I gave her a chance. One last shot to own what she did, to admit she'd crossed a line. Instead, she exploded the second I walked through the door. "You humiliated me in front of everyone," she yelled, hands flying, voice high and shrill. "They all had to pitch in $400 each after you stormed off like a spoiled brat. You left me there, your own mother, to deal with the shame. You're selfish, greedy, a disgrace." She kept going. Something about how she deserved that dinner, how I had money and she didn't. That I owed her, that I was nothing without her sacrifices. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just listened, quiet, still, and then I left. When I got home, I opened my laptop and made some decisions. First, I logged into my bank and cancelled the $1,000 monthly transfer she'd been getting for nearly a year. Next, I called the dealership and arranged to have the Lexus picked up. It was still under my name and technically still mine. Then I shut off her Wi-Fi, removed myself from every bill I was paying. Finally, I posted a short note on my private family group chat, effective immediately. I will no longer be covering any personal expenses for Mum or extended family. Please do not contact me for money, travel arrangements, or support of any kind. All prior agreements are cancelled. Thank you. I turned off my phone. Just sat there in the silence. That silence? It felt like peace. But peace doesn't come without fallout. By the next day, my social media was on fire. People who'd happily eaten expensive meals at my expense were suddenly moral philosophers. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me with things like, You didn't have to embarrass her like that, and family is supposed to stick together. One even said, your dad would be ashamed. Right, the same dad whose legacy she bulldozed, the one who left money for my future that she tried to rip away. Aunt Liz posted some long, dramatic status update about what it means to be family and how some people let money change them. The comments were full of people agreeing. Not one of them offered to pay my mum's bills, though. Funny how that works. The first few weeks were rough. I threw myself into work, took extra meetings, stayed late, anything to drown out the guilt and the noise. But at night, it all came back, the voices, the pressure, the loneliness that always followed when I said no. Some nights I wondered if I went too far. But then I'd remember all the birthdays she forgot, the graduation she skipped, the times she looked right through me unless I had something she could use, the night she tried to spend my college fund, the years of guilt trips, manipulation and emotional blackmail. This wasn't about one dinner. It never was. 2 months later, she tried again. She used a neighbour's phone to leave a voicemail. Her voice was small, meek. Claire, it's Mum. I miss you. Things have been hard lately. Maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just talk. Just us. There was no apology, no ownership. Just the same dance, a different tune. I blocked the number. I kept going. Promotions came faster now. I had savings, peace of mind, and finally boundaries. I took a solo trip to Portugal, sat by the water with my journal, and didn't check my phone for days. It was quiet, still, honest. Sometimes I hear things. Through the grapevine. She had to move again, to a smaller place this time. She complains a lot, says I abandoned her. Most of the family listens politely, nods, says that's such a shame, but none of them pick up her tab. They just miss the free rides. Do I miss her? In some ways, yeah, I miss the mom I wanted to have, the one who was warm, generous, grounded, the one who never really existed, except in tiny flashes, like when we walked through Central Park or ate breadsticks at that cheap Italian place. That version of her, I could have loved her forever. But that version of her only came out when she was comfortable, cared for, and adored. Not when she was challenged, not when she was told no. So I stopped waiting for her to change, and I stopped explaining myself to people who were only around when things were easy. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I don't sit around wishing she'd come back. I just don't go back either. That chapter of my life is over, and I'm not rewriting it to make anyone else more comfortable. If she ever reaches out again with real words, not manipulation, not guilt, but something like, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I see what I did then, maybe we can talk. Maybe. But even then, we start fresh. Because I won't be her safety net again. I won't be the family ATM. And I won't let anyone else write my story. Not anymore. Story 3, I used to think my name was Close the Window, Mia, because that's all I ever heard growing up. The second wind hit the curtains. Mom would yell from the kitchen, "Shut that window! Clara's immune system can't handle a draft." Clara. Everything in our home orbited around my younger sister like she was the sun, and the rest of us were just drifting satellites. I was 6 when she was born, and it didn't take long for me to realize what my role in the family would be: backup parent, scapegoat, and full-time apologizer. The first time it really hit me, I was 12. Clara had just started first grade and came home with a mild cold. Mum and Dad treated it like a national emergency. "This is your fault, Mia," Dad snapped. "You probably left the front door open too long this morning." I hadn't. But what was the point of arguing? I got grounded for the weekend while Clara was wrapped in blankets like royalty. That year, chores became my second curriculum. While my classmates joined after-school clubs and played sports, I learned how to clean grout and do laundry. Clara? She got to watch cartoons while I folded socks. Why doesn't she help? I once asked. Mum didn't skip a beat. She's not as strong as you. The doctor said no exertion. Besides, you're already so good at these things. So that became the routine. If something broke, I fixed it. If something went wrong, it was on me. Clara got a B in math. I should have tutored her better. She knocked over a vase. I should have been watching her. She destroyed my favourite hoodie with grape juice. I should have kept it out of reach. By 16, I was done dreaming of fairness. Instead, I dreamed of dorm rooms and ramen noodles, anything that meant freedom. I buried myself in schoolwork and part-time jobs, pouring my frustration into GPA points. My teachers saw potential. At home, that potential was used as a guilt trip against Clara. See how easy it is for Mia. Mum would say, "You just need to try harder, sweetie." But Clara never really had to try. Not with a safety net like me catching every fall. When I graduated high school, I had already made peace with not going to college. Money was tight. Any savings we had, I assumed it was for Clara. I had started scouting waitressing jobs and maybe some night classes at community college. That's when everything flipped. We were sitting in the living room after graduation, my parents, and Clara, who was half listening while scrolling on her phone when Mum handed me an envelope. "We've been saving this for you," she said. Inside was a bank statement, my name on the account. Enough for 4 years at a solid state school. I stared at them like they had just handed me a spaceship, but I thought, Mum gave me a small smile. Clara might not go to college, but you, Mia, you've earned this. It felt wrong, not in a bad way, just unfamiliar. I was getting something Clara wasn't. But then Dad leaned forward, voice low and firm. "This is an investment. When you graduate, you'll help support the family." "Don't forget about Clara," I nodded. I couldn't even process it. Clara stormed off to her room. No one followed her. That in itself felt like a shift in the universe. That fall, I packed my bags and moved 3 states away. And for the first time in my life, I could open a window without asking permission. College felt like the first breath after being underwater for 18 years. I made friends, stayed up too late, learned how to be a person outside the shadow of Clara's delicate constitution. 2 months before graduation, I got an offer from a major firm, Walker & Gates, a financial consultancy with insane benefits and a jaw-dropping starting salary. When I called my parents, I expected resistance. Instead, they were surprisingly chill about me not moving back home. Maybe they sensed what I didn't say out loud. I was done being their insurance plan. I moved into a modest apartment downtown. I called home every Sunday, mostly to hear updates on Clara's journey. She still wasn't working. No school, no plans. Still figuring herself out, which, in her case, meant binge-watching dramas while my parents footed the bill. 3 years into my job, I got the call. Mum's voice had that saccharine tone she always used when trying to butter me up. "Mia, sweetheart," she purred, "Clara's been having a hard time. You know how smart she is. Maybe you could help her get a job where you work." I blinked. Clara had never held a job. Never applied for one, as far as I knew. "We do have some positions open," I said cautiously. "But the requirements are pretty steep." I sent over the listing, bachelor's required. 2 foreign languages, 5 years of relevant experience, proficiency in software Clara didn't even know existed. Unsurprisingly, I never heard about the job again. Instead, I focused on my career. Promotions came. Slowly but surely. I started saving for a condo. The dream of a place that was fully mine grew roots in my mind. On a visit home, I floated the idea. Thinking of buying a place, I mentioned casually over dinner. "Good market right now." The room went cold. Clara stared at her plate like it held secrets. My parents exchanged glances like I'd just announced I was moving to Mars. A week later, Mom called again. This time, she sounded tired. "Your father's back is getting worse. He can't work as much. The house needs repairs. The roof leaks, the pipes are ancient." Here it was, the pitch. "After all we've done for you, sweetheart, college, supporting your dreams, it's your turn now. Cue guilt." So I gave in. I offered them a monthly allowance, $1,500 for household repairs and bills. Mum sounded like she'd won the lottery. "We'll be careful," she promised. "Just the essentials." And for a while they were modest withdrawals. Nothing sketchy. I didn't even think about it. Until one day, a notification popped up. $2,000 at a luxury boutique. I froze. I had never even set foot in that store. The dresses cost more than my entire wardrobe. I called Mum immediately. "What's going on?" She chuckled nervously. "It's just... my birthday's coming up. I saw a dress." I needed a pick-me-up. I reminded her of the $1,500 limit. She promised to stay within it next time. But next time came fast and the limit got smashed again. And again. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. 1 month over budget? Fine. 2? Okay, maybe inflation or unexpected costs. But then it became a pattern. $1,800 own month, $2,300 next, $3,900 month after that. And it wasn't just the amounts, it was where the money was going. I started seeing weird charges places that had nothing to do with home repairs. Boutique salons, expensive brunch spots, high-end makeup counters, and this one that hit a nerve. Glow Lounge Nail Bar. $220. For what? Gel extensions dipped in unicorn tears. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I spent a Sunday morning with coffee and my laptop, pulling up the last 6 months of statements. Line by line, I logged everything in a spreadsheet. And let me tell you, Excel has never felt more personal. Out of the $17,000 I'd sent them since agreeing to help, barely $1,400 had gone toward actual home-related expenses. The rest? Retail, dining, spa days. A brand new phone that I knew my mum wasn't using. She still swore by her ancient flip phone with the broken screen. I started piecing things together. The money wasn't being spent on the house. It wasn't even for my parents. It was Clara. The realization crept up on me slowly, then hit me like a punch. The nails, the $300 makeup haul, the designer clothes, I could see her wearing them in her Instagram selfies. Same couch, same background, but now with gold necklaces and cocktails I'd never heard of. This wasn't about helping family. This was about financing my sister's Instagram lifestyle on my dime. And the worst part, I let it happen. I knew what I had to do, but I couldn't just cut them off cold. I needed to see it for myself, make sure I wasn't just jumping to conclusions. So I called Mum. Thinking of visiting next weekend, I said casually, "I'd love to celebrate your birthday in person. See all the house repairs you've been working on." Dead silence. Then her voice, just a little too fast. "Oh, honey, no need to come. I'm actually not doing anything this year, just not in the mood. Maybe just send something in the mail." My gut twisted. I didn't push. I just said sure, hung up, and opened Clara's Instagram again. She had just posted a photo. Caption, "Nothing like self-care to start the week right, #treat yourself, #blessed. She was holding a martini, wearing the exact same $2,000 dress from the boutique charge. That was it. I went full detective mode, started setting up real-time alerts for every transaction. Each ding on my phone felt like a personal insult. By the end of the week, I was getting charged more than I spent on my own rent. So I did what I do best. I made a plan. I called Aunt Karen. She's the only person in the family who's ever really been honest. She doesn't buy into the Clara is a delicate angel narrative. Hey, I said, have you seen the house recently? Like the roof? Pipes? Any of the repairs Mom said they were working on? She scoffed. Repairs? That place is falling apart. The porch steps still cracked. The roof's been leaking since last year. They haven't touched a thing. I didn't even respond. I just sat there, my stomach in knots. And Clara? She added. Still doesn't work. Doesn't look for work. She just floats. That night, I opened Facebook. I hadn't looked at Clara's profile in ages. Guess what I saw? That exact dress. The luxe boutique one. She was posing in it at a rooftop party with fake lashes longer than my career. There were pictures of cocktails, a beach resort, designer handbags I couldn't afford even if I wanted to. She was tagging herself at 5-star spas and brunch spots I recognized from my transaction history. I'd been funding her influencer audition tape while eating instant ramen during deadlines. And then came the final slap. She'd posted a photo of herself with the caption "Work hard, play harder" under a location tag that said Carlton Industries HQ Carlton, my competitor firm. That was the moment I knew something was seriously off. I called Aunt Karen again. There's more, she said, before I even got a word out. Jenny told me Clara's been showing people a letter of recommendation. From you, says she interned at your company. Even has your signature on it. My heart dropped. That was a line even I didn't think Clara would cross. She's applying for jobs at Carlton? I asked. Yep, using your name. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. I didn't think, I just acted. Next morning, I contacted HR at Carlton, explained everything, told them she'd forged my name and never interned a day in her life. They thanked me, said they'd handle it internally. I thought it was over. It wasn't. 2 days later, my phone exploded, Mum first, screaming voicemails. How dare you ruin Clara's chance at a career? She was finally trying to turn her life around, and you sabotaged her. Then Dad, even worse. You think you're better than us now? You're no daughter of mine. Consider yourself cut off. Then Clara texted, You're jealous. Always have been. Don't worry, I'll still make it without you. That was the moment everything snapped into focus. Years of guilt, of sacrifice, of twisting myself into a support beam for a family that saw me as a wallet, not a daughter. No, I said out loud, like I needed to hear it to believe it. I opened my bank app and revoked Mum's access. Then I blocked them all. The next day, the calls started again, this time from random numbers. More voicemails, more guilt. You're ungrateful. After everything we gave you, you abandoned your sister. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. Then Aunt Karen called again. She was the only one I answered. They're calling everyone, she said, saying you betrayed the family. But Jenny and we know the truth. I exhaled. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. They'll spin it however they want, I said. But I'm done financing delusions. That was 2 months ago. Now, I sleep better. My savings account is finally recovering. I've been touring condos again, and this time, no one's siphoning off the down payment while pretending it's for a leaky pipe. I figured once I cut them off, that would be it. That they'd stew in their anger, maybe throw a few more tantrums, and eventually move on. They didn't. Not even close. They just switched tactics. First came the emotional messages. We still love you. Family is forever. You'll regret pushing us away. Then came the guilt bombs. Your dad's back is worse than ever. I'm worried about Clara's mental health. You used us to get ahead. And then my personal favourite, We made you who you are. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I'd said everything that needed saying when I revoked access to the account, and yet, every few days, some unknown number would pop up on my phone like a weed breaking through the sidewalk. I blocked each one by one, quietly. No fanfare. Just click gone. It wasn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't rant. I just stopped letting them take from me. A few weeks later, I got a message from Clara, not through text, but on LinkedIn, of all places. It was short. You think you're untouchable now? You won't be when people find out what a selfish, bitter person you really are. I didn't even blink. I just clicked report and moved on, but it stayed with me. The bitterness, the desperation, the entitlement, because that's the thing nobody tells you when you stop letting people take advantage of you. The first thing they do is paint you as the villain. I wasn't surprised when the family group chat lit up with chaos a few days later. I wasn't even in it anymore, but my cousin Nora screenshotted everything. Clara had told everyone I was hoarding money, that I'd ruined her chances at a career, and that I'd abandoned my aging parents who were struggling just to eat. She even said I'd sent Mom a cease and desist letter, which I hadn't, but damn, that was tempting. For a moment, I wondered if I should clear the air, defend myself, show the bank records, the spreadsheets, the photos, the forged letter. But then I thought, why? Why spend my energy proving to people who didn't care when I was bending over backwards just to be included? Why argue with people who only remember your boundaries, not your sacrifices? So I didn't reply. Not to the group, not to Clara, not to the second cousin who messaged me. You've changed. Damn right I had. 3 months went by, quiet ones, peaceful ones. I took walks in the evenings, watched movies without having my phone buzz with requests, cooked dinners I never had time to enjoy before. And then something happened I didn't expect. I got promoted, senior consultant, big raise, bigger office. My boss called it a long overdue acknowledgement. I just smiled, said thank you, and then took a week off to fly to Oregon and hike a trail I'd been saving for years. At the top of a ridge overlooking a lake still half frozen in spring, I sat with my thermos and just breathed. No emails, no crisis calls, no requests to cover Clara's bar tab, just me in the quiet. That moment, that was mine. The life I'd built not from inheritance or handouts, but from hard work, long nights, and a mountain of boundaries I finally learned to keep. A month after the promotion, I finally started touring condos again. I met with a broker, got pre-approved, and one sunny Saturday, I stepped into a place that just felt right. Big windows, quiet neighborhood, enough space for a reading nook and a dog, something I'd always wanted, but never felt stable enough to have. I made an offer. 2 weeks later, it was accepted. I was officially a homeowner. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. Not because I was hiding, but because it was mine, all mine. No strings, no guilt. But Aunt Karen found out anyway. She showed up one weekend, unannounced but smiling, holding a plant in one hand and a key lime pie in the other. Housewarming gift, she said. She walked in, looked around, and then just nodded, like something in her had unclenched. I'm proud of you, she said simply. That hit harder than I expected. We sat on the floor with paper plates and pie, and I told her everything. The forged letter, the charges, the Instagram lies, the threats. She just shook her head. They never saw you as a person, only as an extension of what they needed. I swallowed that truth like cold medicine, bitter but healing. About a month later, I got one last message. It was from my dad, short, to the point. Your mother's sick. We need help. Clara can't do it on her own. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. Still, somehow. I thought about all the birthdays I spent scrubbing floors, all the dinners I missed to drive Clara to appointments, all the apologies I made for things I never did. And I thought about how not once had they said, "Thank you." Not once had they checked on me. I closed the message, didn't reply. And maybe that sounds cold, but I've learned something important. Kindness doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Now I have a key to my own place, a lock nobody else has a copy of, and a bank account that no longer bleeds guilt. I adopted a rescue mutt named Charlie. He's grumpy and snores louder than my neighbour's TV, but he follows me from room to room like I'm the sun. That's the kind of loyalty I can live with. Sometimes I still wonder if they'll ever change, if Clara will ever grow up, if my parents will ever apologise. But I don't wait for it. I don't hope for it. I just live and let them wonder what it feels like to be cut off from me. Because at the end of the day, I didn't just pull the plug on their access to my money, I pulled the plug on their version of me. The version who always gave in. The version who always said yes. She's gone now, and what's left is someone who finally chose herself and isn't looking back.